don't you just love the sound of water? I don't know about you, but it makes me feel like I'm in the country. Hi, I'm Ken Bastida. You can build one of these unique patio fountains in your backyard, complete with a beautiful Mediterranean garden. A project that will cost you about $1,500 in materials and just take you a couple of weekends. Excited? Stick around, we'll show you how to get started.
That's right. We'll show you how to create a concrete mortar and cobbled patio fountain for much less than you'd pay a professional to put it in. And we'll also save you money by showing you how to install your own sod lawn. Finally, we'll transform this garden with Mediterranean-style plantings, a look you can achieve no matter what climate you live in.
I'm in the Northern California backyard of our homeowner, Dave Hall. Dave, you got a great place out here. You have been doing a lot of the work yourself. You've also worked extensively with our landscape architect, David Yakish of Garden Makers here in Sacramento. What's next in the yard?
At this point, doing a garden fountain, as well as putting in a lawn and doing some more garden planting.
Well, that sounds great. You hit on something there, garden fountain, David. I got to ask you about that whole concept. What do you use a garden fountain for?
A fountain can do a lot of different things. Two things is it can help make the whole garden feel cooler with the movement of water, and the sound can help drown out a lot of other sounds, like neighbors' dogs, air conditioners, and planes and things like that. So you have more of a pleasing environment that just lets you focus on, just like a running brook.
David, I'm flipping through your portfolio here, some fantastic designs. You've won a lot of awards for a lot of these designs. Talk to me about the design principles. Specifically, what are we looking for in this kind of a patio fountain project?
Well, you want the patio fountain to be very nice on the patio, of course, but it really wants to work as well from the inside as it does outside. Take a look at this example of a fountain I designed. It creates a nice place to sit outdoors, a sense of coolness on a hot day. See how it also becomes a beautiful addition to the environment when viewed from inside the house? That's what we want to create whenever possible. Another principle of design is to create a fountain that complements the surroundings. Take a look at this garden. We put in lighting that looks like mushrooms, and the fountain is a whimsical play on that theme. It's an upside-down mushroom, and it fits into the environment very well. Imagine if we had instead put in a more traditional fountain, something in a totally different style. See what a difference it would have made? It doesn't seem to go with the surroundings.
Here is an overhead plan of the yard we're working in today. Now, this is where the fountain will go. It's on the patio, but will also be visible from the house and from the rest of the yard, so it will really make an impact. If you look at the front of the house where we'll be working today, you'll see that we've already used rock cobbles here as kind of a mulch in this area. We're going to carry that theme into the backyard by using the same materials in the fountain, a low sunken pool at the edge of the patio lined with cobbles. So the design of the fountain is appropriate for the surroundings. Now, this is the way the yard used to look when our homeowner Dave moved in. He's been working with landscape designer David Yakish for months, doing most of the construction himself to get the yard to the point it's at right now. This is the site where David will be working today, a small backyard with a concrete patio that has already been professionally poured. David recommends you do hire someone to pour that concrete. His plan is to first fill in the concrete dish with mortar and cobbles to match the stones in front of the house and complete the plumbing for the water feature. Next, we'll prepare the lawn for laying down sod by rototilling it and digging trenches for irrigation. Finally, we'll install the new lawn and fill in the garden beds with colorful plantings in a Mediterranean style with a color palette of pastels and oranges.
Well, David, sometimes time is a problem. If I wanted to hire a professional, bring them in, how much would this project cost me?
You're looking at $5,000 to $6,000 to have it professionally done.
That is a lot of dough. Now, if I were to do some of the work myself, and certainly there is some I could do, how much would it cost then?
You want to stay with having the concrete work done professionally, but you're looking at about $1,500 for all the rest of the work and about $800 in plants. So you can really decide on how far you want to go with
Sure, about 2,300 then combined compared to, wow, 5,000 or 6,000. Well, David, I just love this project. Can't wait to dig right in there. It doesn't look that tough. On a scale of 1 to 5, how difficult is this one going to be?
I bet we're looking at this project being about a 3. We've got some rototilling to do to get ready for the lawn. The sod rolls are a little bit heavy. We've got some holes to dig for the plants, and we had some cobbles to lay in the mortar. So I think this project's going to be about a 3.
About a 3. So what do you say? We ready to get this project rolling?
Let's go.
All right. I'm here with Dick Avila, our stonemason on this project. And Dick, I got to ask you, what's the first step?
First step is to make sure that the stones are clean. And like this one here, it's got a lot of dirt on it.
Right.
So what we want to do is we just want to clean that off of there. So we want to make sure that it sticks into the mortar.
Look at that color come out in
And
there.
the
You got
color-
greens and whites.
Right. And then we'll pick out the stones that we want to use for the border.
According to Dick, after you've selected your best cobbles and laid them out, it's time to mix the mortar. Dick recommends using a mortar mix and just adding water. Keep the mortar on the dry side so your stones won't slide around on the slope of the fountain dish. Lay down a 3-inch bed of mortar in a small area, about a foot or so square. And embed the cobbles starting from the center and moving up. Once the mortar has partially dried, about 2 hours after you set the stones, rake between the cobbles with a stick to smooth the mortar. And then brush the stones with a soft bristle paintbrush or an old broom to get off any excess mortar and really leave a neat finish.
Well, our cobbles are all in now. When we come back, we're going to finish building our fountain. We're also going to show you a planting plan for a beautiful Mediterranean garden that'll work no matter where you live. Stay with us.
We're back in the Northern California backyard of Dave Hall, and we're getting trade secrets from landscape architect David Yakish on how to install a unique patio fountain and transform the rest of this yard for about $2,300. It's a project that would take most homeowners a few weekends to complete. And now it's time to finish that patio fountain.
Well, Dave, our lucky homeowner this time around, how you doing on the project so far?
Actually, it's been very simple doing the project.
Good.
Much of it I already knew how to do, but David showed me where to do it.
David Yakish, our expert, what's next?
Well, we're going to try and make the stones stand out a little bit more and just really pop against the mortar. So we're going to stain it with a chemical stain, and let's get started and I'll show you how to do that.
That sounds great.
Staining the mortar is really easy. You can pick up a chemical stain from any home supply center. All you do is brush it on, and you can see that chemical reaction begin right away. Over the course of several hours, the concrete will begin to darken, and then we'll be sealing it with that concrete sealer. Once the stain is on, it's time to finish plumbing the fountain. First, Dave sets the submersible pump.
Right down.
Just kind of lower it in, huh?
Then he runs the wire for the plug through a line which is buried under the concrete. He uses something called a fish tape to fish for the wiring. Then he attaches those wires to the tapes and pulls them back through.
There you go.
Finally, a plastic grate to hide the pump. Again, something you can pick up easily at a pond or landscaping store. And a low-voltage underwater light that sits on top of the grate, along with a few strategically placed cobbles to hide that grate.
Well, before we can turn on the water and fill up our fountain, we have to wait for that chemical stain and sealer to dry. So it's probably a good time to take a couple of minutes and check out David's planting plan for that wonderful Mediterranean garden. Well, David, you have explained for us the design principles in building the patio fountain itself. How are we going to treat the garden?
We're going to start with creating a Mediterranean garden that fits a Northern California garden, but we're really trying to create something that can be used all across the country.
Good idea.
There's a lot of plants that can be, put into that situation for that kind of design. So let's begin with looking at the design we've got planned for this garden.
Great.
Take a look again at the overhead plan for this yard. David says there are already some plants along here, but this area is pretty much bare. This is the area of the yard that doesn't have many plantings right now. His plan is to fill in all the beds with a rich variety of plants to really create a lot of color. There's a lemon tree and a crepe myrtle, which David wants to keep because they already have size and they're nice plants. One design principle David uses is to block out unattractive views with plantings, so he's going to add 2 trees here to block the view of the neighbor's yard. And then he'll put in evergreen shrubs along the fence to soften it. David says that for this project, he's using plants that will give a long, staggered season of bloom. This lantana is a really easy, drought-tolerant plant. It takes full sun and flowers non-stop for months, spreading and giving color close to the ground. A good cold climate substitute for lantana is this coreopsis, known as moonbeam. It's easy to grow from seed, and again, flowers from spring all the way to fall. David says gray foliage adds to the Mediterranean look. This plant, known as Dusty Miller, has lacy, gray-colored foliage. A good frost-hardy substitute is lamb's ear. It's low-growing with very soft gray leaves, and it takes sun or light shade. Finally, this shrub, called bluebeard, is another drought-tolerant plant. It gets about 4 feet tall and can take a hard frost. Great for a Mediterranean-style garden.
You talk a lot about color and depth in your designs. A problem I always have, I never know what to plant where. Is there any easy way to figure this out?
There is an easy way to figure that out, and let me show you on this color wheel.
Well, this is great.
And basically, you have the whole range of the rainbow and the colors, and you want to start with colors that are opposite one another, using a lot of oranges with the blues, purples with the yellow range, and that's kind of the principle we're trying to set up with this garden.
So the opposites attract in this sense.
Opposites attract, and a good combination of using opposite colors, or somewhere in those hues and the range of those color tones.
Well, David, we've got some potted plants here, and they're different colors. Maybe you can show me how colors work together and how some colors don't work together.
All right, well, let's start with the colors that don't work together. We have fuchsia-colored impatient that's already in this garden, and if we were to put in this red verbena, you can see that these colors are too close to the color wheel, and there's really some clashing that's going to go on with this color scheme.
Yep. On the color wheel, you want colors that are opposite.
Closer to the opposite
Okay.
in the same hue. Now, we've got this yellow verbena, which again is close to the red, but it's completely in a different range, so you can see how much better that yellow looks with the fuchsia.
All right, David, let me see if I've got this figured out right. We're trying to put things together in some semblance here. Does this work together, this lamb's ear and this plant here with the colors and textures?
Not exactly. You have this leaf that's about the same shape as this, and the color range is too close together with the white and the green and the white and the green here. So something you might want to try in staying with the same colors instead of the opposites, but the same range, but trying to change the texture.
That's a good idea.
So you start getting into something where the yellows are playing together, but the texture is much different.
That's great. That's a good tip, David. Well, when we come back, we're going to get these plants put in the ground. We're also going to show you how you can save hundreds of dollars by planting your own sod lawn. We'll be right back.
Back in here.
Right back over there. Right in there.
Welcome back to the Northern California backyard of Dave Hall, who, with the help of landscape architect David Yakish, is learning how to transform his yard with plantings, a new lawn, and a unique patio fountain. It's a project that costs about $2,300 to build and would take most homeowners a few weekends. So far, we've chosen and laid out our cobbles, choosing the best looking for borders and corners in the fountain, and we've mixed the mortar for the project, keeping it dry, not soupy, to hold the stones in place on a slope. Then we laid in the cobbles, cleaning between them with a stick, and then a soft brush a couple of hours later before the mortar completely set so there's no excess mortar on those stones. Then we used a chemical stain, which will turn the mortar dark over time to make the stones pop out visually. Finally, we put in the pump to recirculate the water, hiding it with a plastic grate and more cobbles.
David, what's the next step?
We're going to get this sod down and transform this backyard into a garden.
Sounds good. Let's get going.
According to David, laying your own lawn really isn't that tough, and it can save you a lot of money. You have to rent a rototiller, about $80 for the day, to prepare the ground. You want about a 6-inch deep bed of good soil for that sod to root into. Add a time-release fertilizer, and then just begin rolling out the sod. The grass you choose depends on how you'll be using the lawn. David says thinner bladed grasses look nice but are more fragile. This sod is a mix of a delicate bluegrass and a stronger fescue.
Then after this one's unrolled, Dave, we're going to need to cut another one in half to start a half roll there.
David says you want to stagger your seams so the lawn doesn't look too lined at first. And you're going to want to water it a couple of times a day for about 15 minutes each time for about 2 weeks till that sod has taken root.
Well, our sod is in, our plants are almost ready to go, and when we come back, we're going to show you our beautiful finished patio fountain in all its glory.
For questions or comments, please write to Landscape Smart, care of HGTV, Box 50970, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37950. Be sure to include the episode number and your daytime phone number.
Well, the water is bubbling up in our beautiful patio fountain project. We're back in the Northern California backyard of our homeowner, Dave Hall, here. And thanks to the expertise from our landscape architect, David Yakish of Garden Makers here in Sacramento, we finished this project, and we did a pretty good job on it. I got to give you guys credit. We finished it, well, for about $2,300. That's about half of what you'd pay to have pros come in here and do it. It cost you more like $5,000 to $6,000. A project the average homeowner could do in a few weekends. You guys ready to show everybody how you did it?
You bet.
All right.
Sure.
Before we do, let's take a look at what we started with. A nice backyard with some plantings, but also a large bare area and no lawn. On the patio, the concrete had been professionally poured, but there wasn't a fountain built yet. Now take a look at the beautiful and unique patio fountain. It's really a dramatic statement with a great sound that drowns out the neighborhood noise, and it's a focal point both from the patio, the house, and the rest of the yard. And the yard looks so different with a new sod lawn, rich Mediterranean plantings that really complement each other in color and form. And David also added sculptures in materials that go along with the yard. These cobble birds and other sculptures out of steel, which match some of the steel fencing. This is truly a beautiful finished project.
Gotta hand it to you guys. Nice work. I love this project. I think it came out great. Dave, you got in there with your knees, you got your knees dirty putting those cobbles in there. How do you think it turned out?
I think it's awesome. It's beautiful.
You love it? You like the noise of the water in the evening? You'll be able to open the window, listen to this bubbling going on out here?
You bet.
David Yakish, our landscape architect, did we adhere to all the design principles we set out to do?
I think so. We had a good plan that we started with that we worked on together, and we've got the fountain where it's close to the patio. You can see it from inside the house, and there's enough room to get around it and not fall in. We've got the lawn in, which gives it a nice backdrop to the green and the simplicity of a carpet. And the plantings are the Mediterranean concept that we came up with, particularly the blues and the yellows working real well together.
A lot of contrasting foliage.
A lot of
That's what we were
contrast,
after.
a lot of grays, a lot of hot colors, a lot of colors that work well with the color that Dave's chose for the house. One of the things we also added to this garden were some accessories. In keeping with the cobble mulch that we use in the front and the cobbles in the fountain, we added some stone birds that were done by some local artists, and they're going to be walking around in the grass in the same cobble design with the rusted metal.
Well, I think you can see and hear this project came out beautifully. Let's take a minute to recap it for you.
First, we built our fountain using pre-mixed mortar and keeping the mixture dry to support the stones on a slope. We laid in a thick layer of mortar in small areas at a time and embedded the rocks. When the mortar was partially dry, we cleaned between those cobbles with a stick and a soft brush. And later, we stained the mortar to make the stones pop out visually using a chemical stain. We installed the pump, hiding it with a grate and more cobbles. And then we moved on to the lawn area, which we rototilled to a 6-inch depth, adding compost to make sure the new sod had good soil for rooting. We unrolled the sod, staggering the seams, and just look at our finished patio fountain and yard.
Well, as always, it took a lot of people to put this project together. First of all, our homeowner, Dave Hall, thanks for inviting us in. Our landscape architect, the expert, David Yakish of Garden Makers here in Sacramento. Special thanks to our stonemason, Dick Avila. He helped us pick out the cobbles, put them in the right spot. And I'm Ken Bastida, and here's hoping that all your landscape projects turn out as well as this one did. We'll see you next time.